Hello and welcome to the Joint Media by Visibility panel. Today we've been joined by a bunch of students from LGBT who are here to talk about bivisibility, what their definitions are of what it is to be bisexual in today's climate, and pretty much just kind of have a discourse about why we have Visibility Day. So we're just going to go along the line, everyone's going to introduce themselves and they're going to tell us their names, their pronouns, and just what they identify as.
Hello, I'm Charlie. My pronouns are she and her, and I identify as pansexual.
I'm Caitlin. My pronouns are she, her, and I identify as bi/pan, depending on how I feel.
My name's Adam. I go by he, his pronouns and identify as bisexual.
My name's Stuart. I go by, I don't know what pronouns I go by, and I identify as queer.
My name's Lucy. I go by she, her pronouns and I identify as bisexual.
My name's Taylor. I go by she, her, and I'm bisexual.
So I guess the first question I'm going to put to you guys, and you can answer it in whatever order you want. What your working definition of the term bisexual is. So does anyone want to jump in first with what they consider to be bisexuality?
I would probably consider bisexuality kind of from the most basic definition to be attracted to your own gender and other genders. This is a basic definition.
Yeah? Does anyone have any more thoughts on that?
I'm very similar. That's how I identify, but I feel like for me, how I always explain it is like I like people like me and people not like me. And that's something I read from another bi woman in an article. And I just felt like that's where I connected more, just looking past the whole gender aspect to it. Although I do fight with that.
Yeah, because I suppose traditionally bisexuality is seen as being like, I'm attracted to men, I'm attracted to women, but I think like in recent times it's kind of been complicated a bit by the notion of kind of destructuralizing gender in that way, and that like there are more than the two binary genders reviewed, and people being attracted to like their own gender than say someone that's non-binary. That can still offer itself as like a bisexual identity.
Mm.
Do any of you have any working definitions?
Yeah, like I would say, I would identify as being attracted to my own gender and other genders, which is why I sort of switch between bi and pan, because I haven't really quite decided where I sort of fit. Because I think a lot of people will say that it's like men and women, and then I kind of don't really like see someone's gender as like a thing of what I would think about if I was attracted to someone, which is why I think pan probably fits more, but I don't know.
Yeah, I do agree with what she said about pansexuality. Like, the standard definition, I think, is being attracted to someone regardless of their gender, and that's kind of how I feel. But sometimes it's just easier to say bisexual because more people are familiar with the term.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. I usually look past gender identity and like connect with the person more, kind of like a hearts not parts kind of thing.
I like that, hearts not parts. I think like a word that's kind of come up a few times is the notion of like other genders. So it's kind of like we've moved away from the notion of both genders, and it's like your own gender and then other. Does anyone want any thoughts on that, or is it like the notion of what you are and then it complicating it by like if you're not cis?
Well, see, I think there's a few people I know, and I would certainly agree, that believe that gender is more of a spectrum. Then it's not binary, it's not set, and you can fall anywhere in between. Whatever you feel comfortable as. You don't have to identify as one specific thing. Which, I mean, some people feel bisexuality as a sexuality doesn't include that, but I mean, from the people here, obviously, you can see that that's not always the case, and that we choose to identify that in like our own way. Because for me, I find bisexuality easier to kind of explain because of the thing where people don't really understand pansexuality. If they haven't heard of it, you have to explain yourself more. But at the same time, for a lot of people, they may just assume you mean men and women because they don't know, or they don't kind of think of gender as a spectrum. So.
Mm-hmm. I think it leads quite well into my next point, which is talking about like how we kind of got into the notion of bisexuality as people. So like, when did we first start hearing about bisexuality? When did we start to see ourselves in that identifier? Does anyone want to talk about their early life and when they started to kind of become familiar with the term bisexual and then start using it, I guess?
Yeah, so I started using mine kind of like 4th year, 5th year of school. I think it was actually whenever I first started watching like Orange is the New Black. like I seen you with Piper going from like being with Larry to being with Alex, and I was like, people do that? Is that a thing? Is that allowed? So then I started to like, you would think about it a little bit more, because I was like, you never knew you were like 100% straight, and I was like, can I do that? Can I like both? So when I started using it, and then I started finding men and women attractive, and I think it was probably lower sixth of school I properly identified as bisexual.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for me it was Glee. When I first I think a lot of people, when I started watching the show, I started being involved with like communities on Facebook, groups and all that. And I started seeing these words like pansexual, bisexual, bi-curious, and I was like, oh, actually, I identified as bi-curious because I was like, oh, I think girls are like cute. I think maybe I want to kiss them, but I don't know about like more. But then as I kind of grew older and I met more people and I've interacted with more queer people as well, like I was like, oh, I think I was kind of more okay with the idea of dating a girl or even someone who's not binary, or I don't know, just dating someone who's not a male. So yeah, I just kind of got more comfortable with it and now I identify as pan.
I think actually for me, the first time I'd kind of come across bisexuality in the media is actually the singer Halsey, who I absolutely adore. I think I was about 15 when her first album came out, and I'd listened to it, and she kind of referenced women in her songs and stuff, and it was kind of eye-opening for me, because for the majority of my life I just assumed, oh well, I like men, so I'm straight, and that was like the bottom line. I never really thought, oh, I can like women, I can like both. And then to hear someone sing about it and talk about it and be so open, and someone who's also very attractive as well, it was like, oh, I might be like you. So that was quite eye-opening, and really felt, it was a nice feeling to kind of think, oh, I actually have a name for this is how I feel, and I didn't know that before. So
I feel like I went off in a bit of a different, because I was at school, I was probably around third year of school, didn't like boys, just did not like them. Maybe I just didn't like the boys at my school, but I dived down the whole, I was like, I think I just like women, maybe I'm a lesbian, and it just didn't feel like a comfortable label. But it wasn't until I was in fourth year of school and I turned to friends and I was like, I don't really know what's going on. Like, I think I'm interested in both, but I'm not feeling over-empowered feelings towards males, but there's something there for females. And they were like, well, could you be bi? And I was like, So I did research. I did a lot of research, hence why I now use the label. But it definitely was something that took me like years, even up until last year as well, still humming and haying over it just to find the perfect definition that suits me. But I managed to get there, hopefully.
Yeah, mine was the same. When I sort of always knew that I'd had crushes on girls and things, and then when I was sort of 13, I'd never heard the term before at all, and then a girl in my year came out as bi and got a complete slating for it, and was really badly bullied and told that she was just doing it for attention and all that stuff. So that was the first representation of it that I had, which sort of made me sort of shy away from it as much as possible. And then it took me quite a while to find sort of other representations, mainly through YouTube. The YouTubers Dodie, who sort of came out as bi, and then I sort of had a different representation of what it actually means, and then it took me quite a while to figure out that that's how I felt. But
you kind of mentioned there was a reluctance when you kind of saw the girl at your school getting bullied. Was that something that kind of resonated with anyone else, that there was a reluctance to use the label for various different reasons, for bullying, or just some of the misconceptions that fly around about bisexuality?
Well, I went to a Catholic school and I had a few issues with that, and there were some teachers at our school, including the head teacher, who weren't very accepting. So I was part of a positive mental health committee, and we done various events throughout the school, and one of them was we put up posters, just kind of positive messages about positive mental health, and one of them said love is love regardless of gender, and another one said it's okay to be gay. And within an hour the posters had disappeared and we didn't know where they'd gone, and it was actually the teacher had taken them down. And this was when I was still questioning my sexuality, so I was like, I don't feel like I can come out here. I don't feel like I can even talk to someone about it. I don't think I have a support network here. And I mean, some people would feel like they could go to people at their school to talk about the problems. It was something that I'd done previously, and then it suddenly was like, I don't have anyone to talk to here because I don't think I'll be accepted. I don't think that they will actually listen to me, or they'll tell me I'm wrong, or that, you know, that being bisexual is wrong, or being gay is wrong, and that I can't even consider it. So I just kept it to myself. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't want to be told that I was in the wrong for something beyond my control.
No, I find it very difficult to come out as well. Honestly, I don't come from a very religious area or background, but it wasn't something that I saw a lot of support for. But then being bisexual, it comes with the whole idea of that you're some, like, you know, you're some Tumblr kid going through a phase and you only post things in black and white and have pastel hair, which there's nothing wrong with doing, but that's not what everybody's like. I just feel like, and even now, you just feel like you're not taken seriously. Like, I've had a lot of reluctance telling people sometimes because you're like, well, you just think I'm not serious. Maybe you think I'm just straight, maybe you think I'm just gay. And, you know, it depends on the partners I'm with or who I'm not with. It doesn't make sense because if I'm single, you don't think I'm asexual. So where does this perception come from?
Yeah. I think building on that is quite a good point about the kind of reluctance to come out, and when you do come out, it being like seen as like kind of illegitimate coming out, that like the big coming out is, Mom, Dad, I'm gay, and then people are like, oh, I'm bisexual, and like, is this a stepping stone? So it's a bit like, does anyone feel like their coming out was maybe negated by the fact that it wasn't a gay coming out, so it wasn't seen as like as valid?
Yeah, mine was like, I sort of, obviously it was a big deal to me, and I like worked it up in my head how I was going to tell people, and then people's sort of reactions were like, oh, that's, and I was like, but it's still a big deal. Like, I'm not, even though I'm not coming out as like fully gay, it's still still valid and needs as much support. But everyone was sort of a bit like, oh, was that it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do agree with this. Like, I was actually talking to my flatmates the other day because one of my flatmates is a lesbian and the other ones are all straight. So we were kind of talking about like coming out and our family's reactions. And like I was saying, like, I haven't come out to my family because if I was dating a girl and I told them, they'd be like, oh, you're gay. And if I was dating a guy, they'd be like, oh, you're straight. And if I wasn't dating anyone, they'd just be like, oh yeah, you're just saying it because I know you were like disappointed in your last relationship, so you're just like, yeah, again, like a phase, or just not taken seriously. And to me, it's a big deal, obviously, as I think it is to everyone, like your sexual identity. So I just haven't come out to my family yet, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. Was there anyone else who had possible like negative reactions to the coming out that happened? So like they'd come out and someone was being like, it is just a phase, or someone saying you'll get over it, stuff like that. Was that an experience shared by the group?
I mean, I've been kind of lucky in that I didn't have negative reactions. My family have been really supportive and I'm really grateful for that. But I've still had people say to me, especially because of the way I dress and because I have short hair, you know, oh, but you look like a lesbian. And especially at school and stuff, everyone just assumed that I was waiting until I was more comfortable to come out as a lesbian. People didn't ever really assume me to be straight. There's been people that have told me that, oh, but I've known since you were 12. And I was like, I found out, or I figured it out when I was about 16. So how did you know 4 years before me? That's just stereotypes, really. You know, there's nothing more than that. But, you know, it was kind of uncomfortable because it's like trying to explain to people that being bisexual is a valid identity and that, you know, it isn't a stepping stone. I'm not just biding my time until I decide I'm a lesbian. I'm me, I'm bisexual, and that's how I want to identify as. That's who I am. So.
I think that's a good stepping stone. That's a good stepping stone on my next point. That, like, you found your like identity in the term bisexual kind of in your own time. Were you helped by anything you managed to see in the media, or how did you find out about the terms? Like outside of that, was there any on-screen representations that kind of helped you, or you kind of saw yourself in? Like Orange is the New Black was mentioned. Is there anything like that?
Not really. Orange is the New Black is one of the things that I actually did see the representation, but the problem with Orange is the New Black is that there's never really a mention of bisexuality. I think if anyone watches it, the story is that Piper leaves her fiance for her ex-girlfriend, and there's a scene where her fiance goes, "Oh, what, is she a lesbian now?" And there's not really the thought like, she never says she's bisexual. There's never that representation. And I mean, of the TV shows that I've watched, I actually can't think of very many characters. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is one of them, with the character Rosa, who I absolutely love. And I know she's come out as bisexual in season 5, but it's not on Netflix yet, so I still haven't actually seen it. But it's nice to know that there's at least one other character of a show that I already watch where that's happening. But other than that, I don't know much more representation. There's not many other shows that I know of.
Yeah, definitely. Like this week, I was writing posts for like the LGBT social medias, and I was looking at like different celebrities who have like self-identified and used the term bisexual, because we didn't want to like impose an identity on any celebrities that were like bisexual identifying for our kind of Bicon week. And it was very difficult to find celebrities who've kind of like stated their bisexual ambiguity or their sexual ambiguity, but never used the term bisexual to kind of describe what they were. So it was a bit hard being like, how do we talk about them as like bisexual icons without imposing the label that they've not self-identified with? Does anyone know any other celebrities or characters in TV show that like there's kind of an aspect of like not straight, not 100% gay, but there's kind of sexual ambiguity, and like what are your thoughts on these people?
I think Miley Cyrus came out as fluid, both gender fluid and sexuality fluid, I'm fairly sure. And she was just saying, I don't really care about your gender, like it's just about love and attraction and all that. Mm-hmm. So I think that was one of the first people that I've seen where I was like, oh, I'm maybe pansexual, like something more than bi. So definitely something good.
Yeah. Would you like prefer if these celebrities use the term and give the term like strength, like I'm pansexual, or are you happy seeing these celebrities just kind of embracing the kind of fluid label, that they're not putting a big old label on themselves, they're just kind of saying, I'm not heteronormative, I'm not conforming?
I mean, yeah, I think it's very important to their audience as well to kind of realize, because I think a lot of people don't fit in any label, or just prefer to be like, well, I'm just queer, I'm just not exactly in this label or in this label, or I don't want to label myself. So I think it's good to have that representation as well. And just, the more you talk, like the more you kind of normalize not just straight or not just gay, the better. So okay with it.
Thanks.
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lack of, like, especially in film and TV, of using the word bisexual. I definitely think there's still a stigma around it. We've sort of gotten to a point where we can have like openly gay characters and openly like sort of queer characters, but using the word bisexual is still, I think, a little bit something that people aren't keen on doing. But I feel like if they did use it more, then that stigma would be more reduced. So I feel like it would be a good idea. But I think having a representation of just being sort of like you said, of like being more fluid and being queer is good as well. So it's a balancing act between the two, I think.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of like a stigma with bisexual in media, but like whenever we done the bi-visibility presentation last night for LGBT, one of my favourite characters from Grey's Anatomy, Callie Torres, came out and she explained what the B was. And she was like, it doesn't stand for badass. Okay, maybe it does, but it also stands for bi. So I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah,
that was good representation.
When you were watching Grey's, did you see that storyline coming? And like when that line happened, what was that? What did it mean for you? Hearing someone actively acknowledge the letter that hasn't really been spoke about in mainstream media a lot.
I thought it was good. I thought it was quite empowering, especially because at that time I did identify as bisexual, so whenever she said it I was like, yes, go on. So it was good. It was a good moment.
Does anyone else have any storylines or characters that they've seen in TV that kind of lifted them, thinking there is on-screen characters that kind of give me that strength? I think something for me, like I don't use bisexual as a self-describing term, but I think like Glee was like a huge thing, that there was just like a lot of diversity, and like some of the characters kind of like dabbled. So like Quinn had like her one night with Santana, and like that was like, she was kind of like, well, I'm not like 100% straight, and like I maybe never do this again, but it was a good time. So And I think there was lots of little storylines in which like a few people kind of like showed that it's like more complex and like it's both one or like the other one, that you can just kind of like have fun with it. So that's definitely something I found. If there's something in the media apart from just more terms you could see change, what would you like to see around bisexual storylines? Just more of them, or is there something like a different way you want to be seen in the media? That's a very complex question. Like, I think Sense8 I haven't seen, but I think Sense8, has anyone seen Sense8?
Oh, it's a good
Yes.
show.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I think that I know nothing about it, so I'll let you guys lead. Sense8.
It's good. It's kind of a blur for me. I actually need to go back and rewatch it, but no, it's very good. I binge watched it. I watched it in like 2-3 days. No, but it was good. Like, it was good representation for LGBT as a whole, because you had it started off San Francisco Pride, if I remember. You had like a lesbian couple, and then you had like Latino couple as well. I think there was like some kind of like speculation on a couple of other characters, but never actually shown, if I remember right. But that's all I can say.
Yeah, I think what was really good about it, it was really, really normalized. Like, they were all just, you know, kissing, and I mean, the whole concept of the show is a bit like strange, I guess. But there's like this massive orgy of like transgender people and like gay people and bisexuals, like this whole thing, and no one ever stops and is like, oh my god, I just kissed a man or I just kissed a woman. Just like, they all just do it and it's fine and it's normalized.
Yeah, there was no like big storyline build up to it like you would see in a lot of shows. Like, it kicks off that way and it's just everyone talks about it like it was just normal. It's just there.
Yeah, another good thing is, like, I think when it comes to sexuality, when a character comes out as queer, it's always like a big part of their story. Like, it's always like that character is their sexuality, while it should just be like, oh, you know, this is my story and I'm also bisexual, like, and I'm also something else. Like, it's not necessarily, like, it's not all about their sexuality, which I think a lot of the time is like such a big, I mean, it is a big deal, but it shouldn't be their whole personality.
Yeah, I think like Sense8 was definitely good with that it had like the whole kind of like mental link thing, that was kind of the arc of the show. The arc of the show wasn't there's a bunch of kind of American queer people running around doing queer things. It was just kind of like there's this mental thing, but also that person's gay and that person's gay. And I think for me, storylines in which it is just kind of like flippantly this person's queer is the best representations. Like, I love a good coming out film, not gonna lie, but like it's really great to just see someone be flippantly, openly queer, and it's not like a journey. They're not like struggling with it. They're just kind of like out, which is, I think, great. Moving on to kind of like this week, so it is Bi Visibility Week. I kind of want to ask the whole room, what is Bi Visibility Week to you? Why do we need it in 2018? And like, what should it be? Very, very big question there.
I think it's a chance to say that like bisexuality is like a legitimate sexuality and not just that stepping stone to coming out as like gay or lesbian. That like people do find, you know, their own gender and other genders attractive and do have those capabilities to have like sexual and emotional connections with them. So I think it gives us that platform to be like, we're here, it's legitimate, deal with it.
I think the idea of bisexual visibility, we're not half straight, we're not half gay, we're a whole, it's a whole sexuality is bisexual. And you know, there's quite, I'm not sure entirely like the statistic, but there is a large number of bisexual people that I know, and just kind of like in general, who, and a lot of them don't identify as part of the LGBT community, but also don't identify as part of the straight community, and they feel like they kind of fall in the middle almost. That one of the statistics I do know is that 66% feel not at all or a little part of LGBT, and a 69%, this was a survey done in I think 2015 in Scotland, and a 69% feel not at all or a little part of the straight community. So it's very much a case for bisexual people that you know, if we don't feel like we're part of one or the other, we don't feel like we have like a community of our own either, because you can't really go around people and be like, are you bisexual, are you, you know, are you part of like my community? So it's almost like sometimes we can be left behind, and I think it's important because there's such a large number of it that we're not well represented, and we're not always kind of discussed or known about. Sometimes it feels like we're just there, maybe in the background, and this is a week where we get to celebrate being bisexual without feeling like we have to take a step back or hide or run from it. It's, you know, it's okay to talk about it and educate people on it.
In terms of like educating people, what can we all be doing as like maybe ambassadors for the queer community? What can we be doing to kind of educate people about bisexuality?
Talking about it, I think, is the main thing. You know, I think being just open about it. It's like the idea with the TV shows of not making that coming out story, like being kind of like open from the start. It's you don't need to shy away from it. You don't need to hide from the idea of being bisexual. If we just talk about it and embrace it, then people who don't know much about bisexuality, so people from the straight community, will feel, you know, like it's something they can talk about and ask questions about, because if we're open, they can be open. So
I think it's important to like normalize it, because I think it's still not a normal idea, and raising awareness like that and spreading the word and having, you know, like our brothers and sisters and our non-binary pals actually like extend their hand to others too is just absolutely brilliant. Like that's the way to get it all out.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of sort of an idea that we sort of don't really exist. Like if a girl says that she's bi, it's like, oh, but you're actually straight, and if a guy says that he's bi, it's like, oh, but you're actually gay. And it's sort of, this week is about being able to be like, no, we are like our own identity, and it's okay to like both or all or however you want to define it, and like it is like a legitimate and valid thing.
Yeah, I do agree with everything that was said, and also as well, I think it's important for bisexual people to be part of the LGBT community, because what I found, like, I think because it's as like a spectrum, it's not like 50-50. I think, at least I can speak for myself, like, sometimes I still question it, because I'm like, oh my god, maybe I'm like only sexually attracted to male, but only like romantically attracted to females, or, you know, I think it's important, and I've realized when I am like, when I spend time with straight people, I tend to like speak in a more heteronormative way. Like I'll be like, oh, my husband one day, and then I'm like, no, I should say my partner, because I don't know. So I think it's important to be part of the LGBT community to kind of be more comfortable with your sexuality. I mean, everyone should be embraced, like the LGBT community, but especially I think if you're part of it.
I think you raised something that we haven't actually touched on, the notion of like being sexually attracted to like a spectrum of genders. Then like romantically you can have a complete different level of like interest. So you could be hetero romantic but be bisexual, so you're interested in having sexual relationships with both, but there's only the kind of the want for a romantic relationship with a certain group of people, which I think is something that's maybe not talked about enough, that they can be different things. And like sexuality and like romanticism, which isn't a term that gets thrown around a lot when talking about like queer theory and stuff like that, is something that comes up. Does anyone feel like there's maybe an aspect of them that is more romantically inclined, or does anyone want to talk about the notion of like romantic, sexual, and that kind of split?
No, I feel like I'm split pretty like 50-50, but I know I would probably get on easier with a guy. No, that's it. But complete 50-50 split.
Yeah. And I think like touching on like my final points, in terms of the recent kind of strides in the LGBT community, we've seen obviously gay rights kind of go through, and like equal marriage, stuff like that is going through. Do you think bisexual has seen the same traction, or is there a lag there? And like, what are our thoughts on the lag, if it's there?
I don't know if it has, but I don't know how we could kind of measure that, because obviously bisexual people are included in. So for example, the whole gay marriage thing is that does actually apply to us, and that it means we can marry whoever we want as well. But at the same time, because of the lack of bisexual representation, I don't think it has come forward as much. But yeah, I don't know how to measure that, because there's not really anything to measure it against. So that's a tricky one, I think.
Yeah, that's a very, very big question. But yeah, I think you definitely nailed it by saying there's no way of measuring progress apart from like law changes, and law changes kind of affect all of us who are wanting to be interested in like non-heterosexual relationships.
Yeah, it
and,
affects the community as a whole as opposed to like individuals, which is which is still progress, and any progress is good. But yeah, I'm not sure specifically for bisexuality how that's there at all, if it is.
Yeah, okay, so I think we've covered a lot of great topics, and I'm very happy with like what we've covered, so I'm just going to sign off there, I guess. So thank you everyone for coming in. I think we've done some good things for bi-visibility, so thank you for watching / listening if you're podcasting, and look out for more LGBT things. Come to LGBT on Tuesdays at 7, and also shout out to the media societies and everyone that's helped. Thank you.